Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I've faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Welcome back, everyone. For this week's episode, we're going to dive into the second part of our episode with Josh Pretzer, continue this valuable conversation. If you did not listen to last week's episode, episode 64, definitely go back to listen to that one so that way you're in tune with everything that Josh and I have discussed thus far. Very valuable episode, lots of value bombs. So go check that one out and enjoy the rest of today's episode. The reason that we got connected was through Singular. I'm looking at your hat, farmers helping farmers, going back to, serve the people and then the business will take care of itself. So he really never hit on that side of things. You're probably where a lot of your time and energy is going besides the family, besides the farm, we got Singular Ag. So share a little bit about that, share how that came about and kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, man, it was all the years are blurring together at this point, but I'd say it's about 4 or 5 years ago. Gosh, man, it might be 6 years ago now. Met my business partner, Ben, and at a field day that neither of us really should have ended up going to because I had something come up. He had something come up. Somehow we both made it. And we were both at a point in life where we were really questioning a lot of agricultural practices, this is what we've always been told. This is what, this is just what we do. And so we started doing a lot of testing, working with some people, really just starting to do a lot of R&D on our own operations to see what was moving the needle for us. And we were finding a lot of things were poorly allocated dollars, not knowingly. We didn't know that it really wasn't bringing us an ROI. And so it was learning how to be very intentional with the allocation of funds that every farmer has to dispense at the beginning of the year or allocate. And so, yeah, man, it really started off of, it was honestly a selfish pursuit just because it was just something we wanted to do for our own operation. I mean, I just wanted to know what worked for Josh Pretzer and then wanted to learn what worked for Ben. This wasn't like, hey, let's launch this thing and whatnot, but it kind of turned, and we're both entrepreneur spirited and minded. And so it didn't take too long to kind of see that opportunity developing because it was someone down, hey, it's just conversations with farmers. What are you doing? I'm doing this. Interesting. I'd like to try that. Do you have any more? Or, it's like, yeah, I got some in the shop, run 50 gallons out in a tote and bring it to you. And it grew. And so we started learning things that were working really well on our operations. And then, man, I guess just word of mouth spread. We were both really fed up with modern day agriculture in so many facets, not all of it, but certain parts of it. And so my brother-in-law, Michael, has a podcast. And I told him, I said, would you mind if I just borrowed your studio for like an hour and we vented? I really don't know why, but we did. And it was hilarious, man. The audio in the room was not good. And so we actually pulled a floor rug up and hung it over our heads because the echoing was so bad. I mean, this was the dumbest thing, man. It was so dumb. And I'm like, I should just throw this up as a podcast somewhere. And so Google how to start a podcast, Spotify podcasters, so on and so forth. And I'm not a tech savvy guy. So trust me, anyone wants to start a podcast, they can. If I can do it, they can do it so much better than I can. And we started the podcast and we had people reach out and be like, can you do this again? Well, okay. And man, it really grew. And then we had guys contact us from other places asking about product. And so we started to build a business, just sourcing products that we were finding work great for us. I mean, it's how we met, I think. And, in Nebraska. And I mean, dude, the doors that have opened and the opportunities, the people that I've met through this it's been life-changing. It's been life-changing. It's probably, I told someone, I don't remember whether I told Heathman this or Bean or It might have been my wife the other night. I'm really thankful that the MedWorld door got closed because it never would have led to this. And I really think this is going to be a more fulfilling trajectory in life than that would have been. Not saying that that wouldn't have been, but hindsight's 2020. And so when we're assuming we become old men and, we sit on that rocking chair on the porch looking at the sunset, looking back on life and then realizing why things happened the way they did, it's a deal. But yeah.
Well, I want to just on that same comment, I don't want to interrupt your train of thought there, but going back to, didn't even really comment on the situation I went through with your dad, and how life changing that been to kind of experience that. But at the same time, I'm not saying it was a good thing. I'm not going to be that person. But one, at least that, he's still around. And, at least through that transition, you still had access to him. Because we've probably both known people that were, the dad, one that was in charge, passed away and took all that information with him. And so we witnessed that thing, different experiences there too. But also, in that situation, at least you had access to him. But then going back to, that life changing event, since we're talking about that, that would not have happened. Would you have ended up in the medical field, or would you have been able to start the businesses or had the control of the operation to try new things, R&D, to different products, to make that connection with Ben to ultimately get you to where you are today?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Man, it's funny looking back on life. So many people try to steer the boat of their life trajectory. It's a whole lot easier being a passenger. And I firmly believe that God opens and closes doors. I will hold to that. And and I know everyone can relate to this. A door will close and we don't know why. And it hurts. And there's emotions that we go through dealing with that. But it's one of those things where another door might open and you think it's a really insignificant door. And all of a sudden, wow, you had no idea. It's very important in the development of being a human to realize that we didn't realize the significance of something we thought was insignificant. And so it's important to remind ourselves, hey, you're not the one with the best eyesight in the situation. Quit trying to look at this with your eyes necessarily. People will call, and I really enjoy it. I'm thankful for the conversations I get to have with customers and people that call and converse and talk agriculture. And man, it's amazing. You'll talk to a guy and he might be some of the best conversations I've had are guys with a 100-acre hobby farm. I've had great conversations with guys that farm 10,000 acres. But, that's why I don't lead with how many acres do you farm. It's just, we just talk agriculture. And then it's crazy because you'll have a guy that'll be like, you'll think the lead is dead, or you're like, this isn't going anywhere. And the guy goes, I'll go ahead and take 3,000 acres of that. You're like, whoa, oh my gosh. Or the opposite, you'll have a guy and you're like, oh my word, this guy's a doctoral scientist. Da, 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 da. He's like, can you send me one jug? And you're like, oh, thanks. Not that that's not important, but it's just, you never know, man. You never know who you're talking to. And one of my favorite sayings that an old guy told me once is, everybody sits on a pot. And I'm like, what's that mean? And he's like, dude, everybody sits on a pot. He's like, everyone gets born, everyone's going to die, everyone sits on a pot. And it was kind of like, yeah, I guess Warren Buffett does the same.
Absolutely. Kind of going back to the doors that open that might seem just super insignificant. I mean, honestly, I'd say that's how our connection got about. All of a sudden it was like, hey, I met a friend through a different group and he's talking about, these humics and stuff like that. And obviously the benefits that they had. And I'm like, yeah, I would like to learn more about that. And then he's like, starts talking about this singular ag. And I'm like, the only singular I know is the, one that's on the planter, So I'm like, what the hell is this singular ag? And I'm like, long story short, it's all of a sudden it's like we're making connections to this guy and that guy and leading to the network. And that's honestly the big thing that has kept me in business with you guys, kind of going back to the people helping people, farmers helping farmers. And that's what I love about this is because, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go down the road to the co-op and get a product similar to what you guys have, maybe not as good a quality, or we can go down that road, but just in general, what's kept me with you guys is being able to have that connection and that knowledge that's grown into this conversation today, ultimately. And that guys that are on the same path as me, same path as well, most farmers out there just trying to do things better. And so that's kind of goes back to that, something that seems really insignificant of just meeting this random dude from Kansas that sells some stuff to all of a sudden, a podcast today where we're talking about more than just using products. We're talking about things that go deeper below the surface level. And that's the value that I provide in those connections, in those conversations. So I kind of appreciate the comment there about the different doors that open.
Yeah, man. And that's something that's been great is I value the relationship with the farmer over a sale. And a lot of people and farmers read into that, man. Farmers read into, is this guy trying to have a conversation because he wants to sell me something? I think we can all relate to having been presented that, like this guy's buttering me up because he wants to sell me something, or he's come to lunch type deal. Well, we all get that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. People out there make a living selling things. Most people in life actually make a living selling things, whether it's a service or a product. But it's being a genuine human being and caring about the relationship with the person is the key fundamental to starting a successful business. But man, it's also something you have to be very diligent of to guard your mind and your heart, because you can care too much about someone. You can invest too much into a person too quickly, and then they turn around and just screw you or, use it against you, so on and so forth. It's very unfortunate that it happens. But the number of young guys I've got to have a conversation with that they're like, man, you talked about really having a knockdown, drag out fight with your dad, on a podcast. And how did you deal with that? Because they're at this point where, dude, there was at a time I was in my truck, I was going to leave and I was never going to show back up on the farm. Like, I think a lot of us guys have been to that point before, I'm not saying, but if you're in a working relationship with family and you've never been mad, something's wrong. It's just life and business, man. But it's how you come out of those situations that, it's like, hey, maybe I can help somebody that goes through this. And that's absolutely, without a doubt, been the most rewarding part of this whole venture. If nothing else happens, if we never sell another jug of Fulvic and say the door shuts today, like completely shuts, and I go and work at McDonald's the rest of my life, the number of people I got to just share a story with or talk to, like, that's been so fulfilling beyond measure, absolutely beyond measure. And I'm so thankful for that, and that's meeting people through the podcast, the Singular Ag podcast, people that call, people that see us on social media, people I run into like a Commodity Classic, got to meet some super cool people out there, and so it's one of those things where you never know whose life you're going to impact. You never know, and you never know to what degree. So I encourage people, man, don't be afraid to talk to somebody and share, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people just looking for someone to walk through some life with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said about, just having that conversation that's below the surface level and people are real, and just being able to be like, there is somebody out there that's gone through that. It's been through their fair share of struggles, seen the other side of things, but just somebody to relate to at the end of the day. And that's what I think is really great about the connections there. And I applaud you guys for focusing on that solely. Obviously, yeah, we need to run a business. We need to try to be profitable so we can continue this. But at the end of the day, it's also still about, what does fulfill us, because there are businesses out there that are profitable that are run by somebody that is ultimately not fulfilled. At the end of the day, what good does that do? So there's a lot of things to consider there. And that's, I think, a great point that you made there.
And that's the thing is, dude, I love business. I love finance. Like, I always have. I just love researching. And I'm reading a book right now, 32 letters. It's 30. Don't quote me on the number. 32 letters John D. Rockefeller wrote to his son. And it's not like a page turner, And I'm not promoting John D. Rockefeller as a role model, but it's fascinating to look into that perspective of life because, I mean, he's arguably one of the most successful humans to ever walk the face of the earth. But to look back and he shares his regrets and his successes, like I said, I'm not saying it's a life to model yourself after, but it's a perspective that I think a lot of people overlook because he does share some of his regrets, at the end of his life. And it's very powerful. They say you don't become famous till you die, and there's a lot of truth to that. But like on the product side, can be for any company. What we sell, you could probably find it cheaper somewhere else. Like if a guy dug hard enough, looked enough, haggled enough, they could. But at the end of the day, like the goal is to bring value, so much value to a farmer, to an operation, to a person that I'll just take myself, like say for me, if I get so much information, even if that person, whatever their price point is, the value of being able to lean on them for future information is so much worth the investment of whatever it might be. A grain marketing opportunity, say a grain marketing subscription that you learn from people who are in a grain market, whether it might be your seed company, it might be product, it might be technology. There's a matter of, it's like, do you go to the cheapest guy to build your home? I don't know people that go find the cheapest person out there to build themselves a home. So why would you structure the rest of your life that way? I'm willing to pay a little bit of a premium just to be in the circle of the people that I get to work with because of that. And so it's like, I want the sale of a product to be the afterthought, and I want the value add to be at the forefront, because if someone learns something from what we're doing, from a mistake we made or a success we had, if someone learns from that, that's free. That doesn't cost a thing. They don't have to do anything with us. All of our content is out there. It's on YouTube. Aaron launched a YouTube page and they're dropping so much content on that thing right now. It's absolutely absurd. Singular Agronomics YouTube channel. We just did one on planter maintenance before spring. What to look for in a wheat crop, nitrogen management. I mean, like the media guys are just going nuts with this. This doesn't cost anyone anything. Someone could learn all of this and go take that information and go buy something somewhere else. That's fine. The goal is that when you go and buy something, that the information you gleaned will help you make a more accurate decision on your farm. Like, hey, I learned that when I'm running this product at this concentration, I only need this much. These guys are telling me I need 2x that. If they don't give me a viable reason, then I'm like, okay, this is what I learned here, and this is a why. Then you can go out. That is power. That is a tool in the farmer's handbook. The more knowledgeable a farmer can be, the more useful and more valuable he will be in the world of negotiation and purchasing. If I know about the genetics of seed traits, maybe I know that I can drop my population by 2,000 seeds per acre because of the makeup of the flex and the hybrid on a certain year. Money in the bank, instead of asking my seed guy, what do you think I ought to plant? Now I love my seed guy. My seed guy is my best friend. And so, I trust his judgment. He cares more about the seed going in the ground than I do. And, and that's the value of working with people that care so much. Like he's out there walking my field looking at emergence and I haven't even gotten back out there yet type deal, and so thankful for that, and try to surround yourself with people that care to that degree. And that's another thing I wanted to hit on. This is something that's been on my mind lately is people, farmers particularly, the check that hurts the least to write is one that benefits someone I appreciate the most. Like when I write my check for seed, that does not bother me at all because I know where it's going. I know who it's benefiting. I know what I'm getting in that. I'm not just buying a pallet of seed. And so I'm fine with that. And I'm thankful. A lot of people have struggle seeing someone else succeed. I hate the term, that guy makes too much money. You don't know what that guy went through. You do not know his life story. And I have a friend, he makes over $20 million a year. And he lives on $100,000 a year and gives $19,900,000 a year away. That's his life rule. Like, do you know how many people talk trash on him because of his success in life? But they have no idea. He does not do that openly. And I'm not going to say his name, but when you start looking at people with a judgmental attitude, man, that's really a dangerous place to put yourself in. Really dangerous. I've never seen a judgmental person really benefit someone to much degree. It's a poor place to be mentally. And it's tough not to get there, man. It's tough when the neighbor drives by with a brand new combine. You're like, oh, I'd love to have that. He might be $1 million in debt. Maybe he paid cash for it. I don't know. But I don't know. This is absolutely a rabbit trail. It's absolutely a rabbit trail. I don't even remember what started this conversation, but it's the value add. It's enjoyable writing a check. When I write a check, and that's just a matter of finding people you like to work with.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And honestly, that's, a lot of things that you and I are both trying to do, ultimately provide value to somebody. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're hoping that we're rewarded for that value that we provide to some extent. Maybe not directly by that person we're talking to, but just through a roundabout way, that all the hard work that we do, the value that we provide is at some degree, we get to reap those rewards or we get rewarded. So, but, kind of going back, we had a few things on the list that we were going to talk about. None of them we discussed, which is honestly fine. That is what I expected. And that's okay, because I fully anticipated this to be kind of like a multiple series, kind of throughout maybe the year, throughout the growing season. We can maybe rehash this back out and kind of touch base on some of the other things. But
when I saw your outline, I was like, there's no way we're going to get through all this. And that's great. Dude, it's absolutely okay. The worst one is when you get all the way through it, you've only spent 10 minutes on the conversation. That's a bad podcast. Or content gathering.
And that's 100% the reason why I wanted to get you on here, because, I think there's just so much value in everything that you said that wasn't even on the outline, wasn't even on the topics that we had mentioned. There's a lot of information in there. And so I don't even think it's worth going into any of those topics at this point. I'm thinking we just save those for another episode.
We did. Yeah, we didn't even get on to financial planning for a farming year. That was when I was like, oh yeah, we even talked about that before. How do we get on that one? But yeah, I'd love to jump back on and talk about stuff. This is very fulfilling work for me. I love doing this. And you're right. And I need to own that. One of my downfalls is talking too much, but one of my assets is being able to talk. And then it's just on me to make sure that the words I speak is impactful conversation. So,
well, and to that extent, I'd say a lot of people, like I said, are really good at talking, are really good at BSing and just staying surface level. Well, I guarantee if I took this to Aaron or, pass this over to my wife, there's about 10, 15 different clips in there, just nuggets of information that are actually impactful. And so I appreciate your time and your opinion for that. Willing to share and to go deep and below that surface level. And I think that's what a lot of people are actually going to be able to listen to and connect with and, find value in, like we've been talking about. So, like I said, I appreciate your opinions on everything you've shared today.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I applaud you. You said you were a quieter guy, and you are. Like, there's two kinds of people in life. There's one that talks a lot, and there's one that don't talk very much, but when they talk, it's important to listen. I categorize you in that group of people, and so but something that always impressed me is I'm like, and when you launched the Pioneer Farmer I was like, man, I never would have expected that Garrett would have gone out on the limb and done this, because I thought Garrett was a more reserved individual, and so, dude, kudos to you for having the balls to do this. It's important. It's impactful work. And dude, I know for a fact, because there are days where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this today, and it happens. And people need to appreciate, like, it takes drive and effort, and your family is impacted because of it. And, you lose the Wi-Fi connection and something crashes or a mic doesn't work, and the list goes on and on and on. But, it's like, seriously, thank you for what you do with this. Numerous people reach out to me, whether through Singular platform or other avenues and comment on the Pioneer Farmer podcast. Like, hey, did you hear the podcast today? Because it talked about this X, Y, and Z. So great job on that. Keep it up. And it is meaningful work that's being done.
Oh, I do appreciate that. And it's good to hear. And like I said, I appreciate the words of wisdom there and the encouragement, because at the end of the day, most of the time when I record my episodes, I'm talking into a mic and then I send it off. And yeah, we do the best we can to promote it, but you don't always know who listens to it. You don't even know what kind of value they get back from that, just kind of with the way that content works, right?
Yeah. I had a guy from Australia message me the other day. A guy from Australia is like, hey, dude, love the podcast. Keep it up. And you're like, what? Like, that's such an opportunity in today's world, man. So I love them. They're generally not like long drawn out podcasts. This one is, because I talk the whole time. But I know it's like, okay, Garrett dropped a new podcast. This is going to be, I got a 20-minute drive. I'm going to get this. I know what Garrett is going to say is going to be thought out, and I'm going to appreciate that. So great job and keep it up.
Like I said, I appreciate that. Same to you as well with everything that you do, a lot of the content you put out. As I was going to bring up at some point, but I'm like, everything that you're talking about doing, I'm like, my mind is blown with how you get even through the day with everything that you have to do, especially just even from the content side for Singular and all that you do there to create the content and to push that out in the podcast. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Plus farming and plus a family, man. Kudos to you, man. So whatever you're doing, keep it up. And we can dive into that a whole nother episode as well. So
I tell put the family first. It's so hard. That's what I tell young guys. I said, man, yes, you can physically work 24 hours around the clock, but if you come home and your kids didn't see you when they could have, I personally believe it'll be one of the greatest regrets of our lives. Because really, in the end, who are we working for? What are we working for? If you just wanted to make a living, I mean, honestly, man, I don't know a farmer that couldn't go get a good 9-to-5 paying job out there to pay the bills. So,
absolutely.
Keep your priorities straight. Love your loved ones. Take your wife on a date. Yes, plant season's here. It's tough. We got a rain delay. I'm going to try to take my wife on a date this weekend. She's going to appreciate it. I know she is. Gives her a break.
Absolutely. No, that's a great topic. And as we round this out, take your wife on a date, spend some time with your kids. But before we close out, where can people find Josh if they want to get to interact with you guys and some of the different things that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the most entertaining content would be my personal Instagram. That's what people tell me, the most entertaining aspect of Pretzer's life. And that's j.pretzer. I think that's the handle for Instagram. And that's probably where I'm most active personally. If people want to email me, Josh Pretzer at singularagros.com. I mean, honestly, probably Instagram is the best. Or the Singular's we got a website, we got a YouTube channel. The guys are putting great content up there. We just did some about soil testing, and we're doing a series on high yield management on YouTube. We talk a lot about being very profit minded, very, how do we make an ROI during a poor market environment and higher inputs. I used to compete in the NCGA, and people are like, can you do a series on higher end management? Now I have Johnny, who's a tremendous asset. So, hey, Johnny, can you help me try to bump this one field to the max if we can push it? And still being very transparent in the series about the cost of production. Like this one field, it's 30 acres. Okay. If this field does great or doesn't, it's not going to break my operation. This is not farm wide. And this is like 2% of my corn crop this year or acres wise, 2 or 3%. So but at the same time, if it needs done, we're going to do it. And it's kind of opposite of what we've done a lot of content off of, but it's content people have asked. But the agronomic level is much higher. Instead of, is a fungicide worth it? It's kind of da-da-da-da. We're going to do it. And so on and so forth. Or extra this or this. But we're going to build a teaching series off of that based on soil testing, plant sap analysis. We've got 3 or 4 years of soil, Haney's, and sap test analysis we're building, flow charts off of that people can, I'm like, hey, this is past history. This is problems. That's the series I'm probably the most excited about for this year. We're findable. And then the Singular Agronomics podcast. That's where we do our weekly podcast. We have guests on there. Johnny and I are doing that. Like I said, we probably the one that we've got the biggest feedback from recently is the Protect Our Farm series with Jake and Ethan and Heathman, just talking about a lot of this. We're all in our 30s, married with kids at different points in the operation of, I've taken over. Ethan still actively farms with his dad very successfully. Jake is married into a farming operation, and Joe just took over his dad's operation with a sibling 2 months ago. So you've got a very diverse group of guys in different scenarios that all are working towards a common goal. And then as well, working with family in different phases of that transition or opportunity. So yeah, that's very long-winded to probably just Instagram. Instagram or the podcast or YouTube or the website. So yeah.
And honestly, by the time this comes out, most guys are probably going to be in the planner. So if you're rolling through the field and you see that singulation monitor on there, just think, hey, maybe a guy can reach out to the Singular guys or quote their podcast, keep them entertained in the cab and learn something from them.
And people ask, where did you get the name Singular? And our logo, I don't know if people can see it on there, but it's a gear. And the motto behind it, the business vision is on a small sprocket, like on a bicycle, you have a small sprocket with a few teeth. It's really hard to pedal up a hill. But the more teeth you have to a sprocket, the better this whole thing moves forward together. And every farmer plays a key role as a, quote, tooth on the sprocket. The more unified, the more connected, the more farmers work together, the better this whole thing, agriculture as a complete entity, moves forward together progressively. So that's that. And Garrett, dude, thanks so much. I really appreciate you, what you're doing, your friendship, most of all. And I'd love to do it again sometime. This has been great.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Josh, for coming on. For all the other listeners out there, that's all we got for now, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram at Garrett Ruskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.